During the 9th century, the shores of North Antrim were ravaged by Norsemen from their bases in Scotland. These were dark days indeed, where no one was safe from attack, and the smell of death ebbed and flowed like the tide on the shore. At that time, Fergus, king of Rathlin and the Glens, endeavoured to secure a lasting peace with his Viking counterparts. Word from other kingdoms was that the Vikings, although fearless and relentless in battle, were in fact reasonable people and could be negotiated with. In a bid to save his people, Fergus sought to make peace with the Viking Hakon by offering his own daughter's hand in marriage as a gesture of goodwill. Fergus's daughter, Princess Taisi, was the most fair and enchanting beauty ever to dwell in North Antrim. She could melt winter with her smile and calm the stormiest ocean with her grace. Unbeknown to the king, Taisi was betrothed to a young local boy called Connor. Both were very much in love and enjoying their blossoming relationship, even though in secret. The king sent word to Hakon of his offering and of his hope that this gesture would help their peoples to live together in peace, trading freely and fairly amongst one another. Fergus approached his daughter the following morning to tell her of her obligation to her father and to her people. Needless to say, Taisi's heart sank. It sank to fathomless depths, so deep in fact that she could barely breathe at times due to anxiety. The thought of having to live out a life away from her darling Connor and from her family and friends took her slowly over the next few days to death's very door. The king, now incredibly concerned for his daughter's well-being, sent word to Hakon that instead of his daughter, he would offer the hand of any of his subjects that he chose, hoping that this choice would appease the Viking. Hakon was no fool. He knew that a settlement between their peoples would be of great benefit to him, and would indeed secure great wealth and power for him. Still though, due to the public nature of his rebuke by the king's daughter, and being bereft of the actual reasons for this, he couldn't help but feel a little wounded. Feelings would have to wait, for the settlement was much more important for him, so he sent word that they should have a great feast on Ben More to mark their agreement. Ben More, a large headland on North Antrim overlooking Rathlin, was of spiritual importance to local folks, as chieftains and kings were buried there. It also served as a reference point since early time for ancient seagoers, where beacons were lit to guide weary mariners homeward. Hakon and his party arrived and were greeted by the king, his court and his now suitably recovered daughter. They spent the day hammering out the fine details of their agreements, thus ensuring stability and peace. As the day progressed, Hakon, now for the first time in Taisi's company, couldn't help but become completely intoxicated by her charm. Taisi, so natural, so carefree, was completely unaware of her effect. Sadly though, this attraction only served to compound Hakon's feelings of rejection. In fact, he became so entranced by Taisi that he decided that if he couldn't have her, then no one could. Opportunity knocked when he met a disgruntled servant of the king. He seized the moment and bribed the disloyal servant to assist in ridding him of that which he couldn't have. The time of the great feast came round, and the party set sail from Rathlin to the foot of Ben More, which translates as the Great Head. Upon arrival, Hakon gave the servant his bribe and suggested a cunning plan so that Taisi would meet her fate that very night. The feast on Ben More was a great release for all present, after relentless struggling and battle. The two peoples were ready to enjoy their newfound security and expressed this through dance and merriment. Hakon saw Taisi dancing with Connor, so in love, so happy, so sickening to him. He gestured the servant, who took this as his cue. The servant cut in on the pair's dance, and graciously Connor withdrew, as was the custom during dances. Hakon gestured for the music to hasten. He grabbed a young lady from the court and proceeded to dance, throw and spin the young woman in what onlookers could only imagine was a Viking dance. With all the focus on Hakon and his poor ragdollish partner, the servant was free to wrestle Taisi over the edge of the cliff. They wrestled, her holding on for dear life until finally she lost her footing and started falling backwards to certain death. The servant turned, but as she fell, Taisi in desperation grabbed wildly at anything she could and managed to catch the hem of the servant's cloak. With his back to Taisi, he was unaware of the danger and was pulled backwards off the cliff as well. They fell an eternity and crashed on the rocks below. Later, sensing something was wrong, the king sent out a search party to look for his daughter. At first light, to his horror, they found her, lying on the rocks below, lifeless, her long, beautiful hair spread out around her. The king broke down. 2 days later, as they laid Taisy to rest, after what they thought was a tragic accident, the king decreed that the headland where Taisy and all her ancestors were buried, kings, queens, and chieftains, be renamed the Fairhead in honor of his beautiful daughter.